Now, that's theory. Now I'd like to turn to practice. Because what you got from me is what you usually get from people like me. Ideas, strategies, concepts, but what I think you're probably more interested in is somebody who actually knows what design is all about. So I'm going to invite up to the stage my new friend, if I may call you that. I'm speaking American English. We say friend all the time. In Swedish, I would never call her a friend, you know, until we'd known each other for 5 years and something like that. Please come up to the stage, Kristin Støren Wigums, who's a fantastic designer from Trondheim. Please, come. Oh, well, yes, let's call me. So, Kristin and I have kind of worked this out in advance. We're going to make this very planned conversation look as spontaneous as possible. So, Kristin, I was happy to get to know you and start to see some of your examples of your work and some of the things you've done. And one of the things that really struck me when we first started talking was you said something about what sustainability looks like. I always think about what it, means or, how you strategize for it, but you said something about what it looks like. What did you mean by that?
Oh, there. Well, it can look in so many ways, I think. I wanted to bring this scenario with me because it's 20 years old almost, and it's from Netherlands. And they were working with this along with you then, I guess.
No. I haven't been everywhere and done everything. No.
It was a governmental program, and they did a lot of work with how can we decrease our consumption by 20 times. So, and they also wanted to see how can technology contribute. Because there was a wave in that time, 98. People were thinking that everything we had to go back to nature, and maybe the people wanted it as well. I don't know.
And factor 20 meant 5% of the resource consumption of today, correct? And the pollution. Factor 20 means a 95% improvement.
Yes. So 5% of consumption per person. Yeah. So these are numbers, estimates of how we have to actually reduce our consumption to be sustainable in Europe. Anyway, I don't know, maybe some of you like this scenario, flying objects and so on. Or maybe you like more space and space for people, nature. When I started to work with this, with design for sustainability, I wanted to make a balance. How do you have people in, and also material aspects, of course, and it's linked very much together. We have to have diversity. We have to have space for old people, for children, for everyone. So I thought that these future scenarios, and maybe also some of the photos today, are for very high-tech or perfect people, maybe? I don't know. So, and how are we related to nature? I think it's, nature is, we have seen today so many beautiful photos and that film talking about the links in the ecology, and it's very, Günther said it wasn't complex, but it's hard to believe everything, all the connections. And of course we have our intelligence and our rational thinking, but maybe we have to go a bit closer to our intuition, so we can understand it even more in another dimension. And so the indigenous people all around the world, they are maybe still have that intuition in some ways, and this is a wonderful drawing from the Aboriginals in Australia, and how they see the connections and how things are linked. And this has also been a big inspiration for people working with permaculture, where you start to restore, or you copy nature somehow, but you also put people in it. So there are so many ways how sustainability what it can look like.
So it can be high-tech, it can be low-tech, it can be something from 10,000 years ago, it can be something from 10,000 years from now. But when you're actually trying to make it work, how does that go?
That's worse.
In practice? Oh. That's our sustainable future, everybody.
How do we make this work? This is from buildings in Norway. We have a lot of wood buildings. And these, and typically now, buildings from the 50s are taken down, and we have a lot of wood. So there was a project where we worked together, a team. How can we actually keep the wood, upcycle it, make new products? And we worked for 4 years doing that, trying to take the wood, take off the nails, make new blocks, make new walls, and here's a small room. We also looked at transparency, empowerment, how can everyone take part in making buildings, and it was a really nice project. But when we finished it, it was like a piece of art almost. We have used so much time and handcraft, and many people were involved, so this would be very expensive to sell. So we need a new economic system. How can we evaluate this type of work in a different way?
So this was an aesthetic success, but an economic, well, not failure, but big challenge for anyone to afford it. Is that what you mean?
Yes, and I think ecologically also it was a success. We did measures on the LCA and so on, and the local way of working with the reclaimed wood. Yeah.
So given that it is complicated and that we have to do trial and error and find new ways forward, how can we increase our success rate? How do we make success happen?
Yes. Here's a project where we worked for many years, but we looked at really simple needs. It was a foundation, Joy of Life for the elderly, some nursing students, so that we could do some different changes in the nursing homes and for the quality of life for elderly in not so difficult ways. So what we did then was I worked then together with some of the leaders, moral leaders. And one of them, Sigrid Moum, she was working on all the different levels, in the political and administration and on the nursing home, together with the employees and together with the elderly. And so we have to work really all the way, from grassroots and up, and yeah, always. And but I think it's we have to stick to the projects for a long time. It's not easily done, and make pilots and then start to make systems. And so I'm now more a system-oriented designer. Try to see what's the simplicity in it, how can it actually work, and what should it cost, and how should the economics work. So we have to build good relationships in our projects. I think that's almost what it's all about, and also give the politicians some good examples.
I heard you, thankfully, confirming some things that I was claiming from my more theoretical perspective, meaning that when it is a complex system, you've got to pull in a lot of people and work in a very inclusive way.
Yeah.
And then to underscore the point you just made, and for quite a while, you don't solve this overnight, you have to keep at it, try and try again, right?
Yeah. You make ownership, so all the stakeholders feel that they really are a part of it. Like this photo here, that guy there, he's about 16 years old, he's a student, and he has a course in school about social care. Every week he now walks together with old people in the forest, learning about how do you actually talk, how do you make relationships across generations, and this gives joy for them both here. So, but we have worked for many years this is for the elderly living at home, and it's taken us a long time, actually 4 years, to build up this whole system of services, actually just to bring the generations back to each other again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's a beautiful success story, and it affirms those principles you were just talking about. But I'm curious in all of this. I mean, if it's that kind of a process, what's the role of business, and what's the business in that kind of process? How do we work with sustainability in this way, and in the design philosophy you're talking about, and make it work economically?
Yeah, because I worked a lot with municipalities, but I also been involved in a project with typical hard business, like this one. There's the architect, Siv Helene Stangeland. She invited me to do the conceptual part of these buildings, and it was really, we had to make a lot of apartments, as you see, but we tried then to see how far can we get with sustainability in this project. And we had to explore the boundaries, but then the construction, the builders also had to join us, and they joined so and so far. So I think the businesses, they have to take some risk. They have to explore a bit together with architects, designers, and others, and also, again, create examples for the politicians to look at. So they have ideas that they can bring forward. I think that's a very important part for the business. In this concept, we also work with social program, and here everyone, the new dwellers that moved in, they got an apple tree that they had to plant outside. So just that little gift showed that it was a different type of apartments that they got into.
So you know that I was emphasizing that with moral leadership and such like that, but I'm going to ask a crass question now. Did anybody make money on this project?
Oh, yes.
Okay, good. Then we can all breathe easily.
Almost I feel bad, because on the top, the apartments are really expensive.
Okay, good.
But they could have taken a higher risk for this project. They could, in terms of environment or sustainability. But here, it's the same people involved. It's Helen and Hard, and it's the entrepreneur or the construction, the builders, Kruse Smith. They are really taking a big risk. They make this new co-living concept or building, and it's a part of a new model, gaining by sharing. We have done a study. That's where I was involved. How can people live together? How can we have like a new frame of living sustainable, a co-living that is more modern? It's not like from the 70s. How can we share more and live on a smaller space per person? And in this project, it's again a company, Kruse Smith, who it's a family company. As it was told earlier today, it's easier maybe that someone just says, we're going to do it. And that's what Sissy later said. So she has kind of protected this project, and together with Helen and Hard and a good team, it's now being built. But what we do is we have involved people all the way. We had this conference in 2013, actually, in Stavanger, the oil city. Do people actually want to live together? Co-living, sharing kitchen, or what do they want to share? So we involve people to come and talk about what would they like to share, what do they like to take care of if they share something, and what must they have for themselves to have a good life.
So you did a serious system study of what's shareable and non-shareable.
Yeah. So we ended up actually in the architects made a concept of the first building that will be built now, but we found out that we had to make a course for the people who will buy an apartment in there to talk and discuss about this new sharing situation. And what is it about when 25 apartments only have 7 spaces for a car? That would be interesting to discuss in Oslo, I guess, and as well. And what happens when everyone comes in with a lot of stuff and actually are going to share half of it? How do they do that? And so we try to bring up awareness and discussions, and actually we try to create a core of a sustainable culture within that new building before they move in. So it's a social experiment.
Wow. And okay, and one more time, was this economically viable, profitable project?
Yeah, we don't know yet.
We don't know yet.
It's,
I think that's a reasonable answer. There's a lot of things about this sustainability stuff we don't know till we try.
But that's the goal. It's a goal that it should be a commercialized concept for co-living. And for real co-living, it's not that you just share a little bit. And it's now now we are taking the experiences out of this process and trying to make a model that can be transferred to other cities, to new buildings, and yeah.
Okay, so a philosophical point, or maybe it's a moral point. Are we doing enough?
Well, I guess we can never do enough, maybe. But if we go back to your goals, well, maybe not your goals.
No, they're not mine. They're the world's.
The world's goals.
I just like to sing and dance to them, but they're the world's goals.
Yeah, because it's like, it feels like very small. Of course, we have heard about very big projects here today as well. But how do we connect to the rest of the world? And we are really on the luxury part of the journey. What's very interesting to see is that other countries are really taking these goals and taking them into practice now. There's a Norwegian politician, Hilde Opoku, who is now in Ghana, working as an advisor for the Ghanaian Minister of Finance. And they have been working now very practically with the budget for next year. And they have picked out one certain point, number 8, and try to see how the other goals connect to it, and then start to work really strategic with the economy in relation to these goals. And now they look also for practical ways of how can the politicians actually put this into practice. So I think then they are in the same boat as us. We need good examples, and they need good examples, and need to bring it into their own way. So,
and as I recall, and now I'm going to make this incredibly smooth transition to a semi-commercial moment, because if you got interested in how Kristin thinks about these things, then I think you're going to have an opportunity to learn more about that. And we should invite Kjersti up on stage for this as well, right? Kjersti, why don't you come up, because you two are going to lead a workshop on this kind of design thinking. So please.
And actually, I can claim that she is a real friend.
Oh, good.
Not just the American way.
Yeah, we have the proof behind her, Kjersti. Yeah. Hello. This is from
when we were young.
Anybody who dares to eat with chopsticks together is a real friend.
For the first time, even. This was in China, 2004. Kjersti and we made a course for students there, a 2-week course. We were very nervous. I think it became mostly a cultural exchange, and I think that was we learned a lot.
Yeah, we went to China to teach the Chinese how to bike.
Yeah.
That was how it was referred to in the local newspaper.
Yes.
Before we left.
Terrible. Terrible. But so now we are actually daring to make a new course in Regie of Doga.
Hosted by Doga.
Hosted by Doga. So we are very thankful and happy for that challenge. Do you want to say something, Kjersti? Should I continue?
I think you should continue. You are in a good flow right now, so that's...
Okay, we have called it Momo, time to restart, tid for restart. And Momo is, I don't know, have any of you read the book Momo, Kampen om tiden, Mikael Ende? Yeah, there are some hands. Yeah. It's about this little girl that actually have her senses and her ears open, and she discovers that things are happening and no one else are discovering it. And it's these gray men that are coming and taking people's time, telling everyone that you are doing non-productive things. You're talking too much to your client as a hairdresser, for instance, and so on. Well, we were inspired by this way of thinking that maybe we have to make a stop and listen and watch and see what can we do for the future, and being inspired by the 17 sustainability goals. We think it's a good way of framing and looking at companies and institutions, public services, to see how are you doing inside the company, and how can you actually discover new arenas for your services or your products, looking outside and relating them to the sustainability goals.
It's a difficult one.
Yes, yes.
2 years ago, we had an exhibition here at Doga, you and me. Live well, live well. And in that we had the concept of drawing some the stories back to the wisdom of the nature, the wisdom of our forefathers. And that's part of the thing we want to take back into design thinking as well. All the things that is inherited in us that we all know, be it from nature or be it from grandparents or whatever, or be it the seasons of the year, know when to pick the berries and prepare the food, or how you do the things related to a year cycle. So that's also part of what we want to carry on into a design workshop. And probably many of you would say, oh, that doesn't sound like design.
But I just remember from China when we were there, perhaps as a final saying, one of the students, in the middle of our models and material discussion and so on, one student puts up a hand and say, tell us a magic story. And I was like, magic story?
Yeah, what do you mean?
What can that be? So we translated a fairy tale, Askeladden som målbandt prinsessa. And that's about Askeladden, this guy who picks up everything. He says, oh, I might get use of this and this. And finally, yes, he got to use everything. But anyway, maybe this course can make you as a company or institution create your new magic story and bring it out.
You know what they say about new technology? It's indistinguishable from magic. So I believe that the new sustainable world that we're building will look like magic if we could see it now.
Yep.
And that's what you're going to help these people do in the workshop, create new magic.
Create new magic. That's right.
Good. Let's give them a round of applause for this wonderful opportunity.